What's up, everybody? Welcome into Breaking the Huddle. I'm Joel Klatt. This show is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the one fans deserve, and we've got a lot to react to because we've got playoff rankings, and we have the actual playoff. And listen, there was a lot of controversy surrounding this thing, so let's jump right into it because everybody in college football talking about the 4-team playoff and really the big news, Florida State dropping out of the top 4 as an undefeated 13-0 and not making the playoffs. So this is what the committee gave to us after Bama's big upset over Georgia in the SEC championship game. Obviously, Michigan number 1, Washington moves up to 2, Texas at 3, and Bama at 4. Now, let's just go back really quickly. And last Sunday, when I saw Texas land at 3, that's when I realized, okay, Florida State is in trouble here. There's no doubt, because if they would have been included, it would have been based on the merit of their undefeated record, and they would have been grouped with the other undefeateds. Okay, so they would have been 3, and then Texas would have been 4. That's how I say it, because Texas got the win over Alabama. So as soon as Texas was at 3, I knew Florida State's in trouble, and sure enough, bam, there's the Crimson Tide at 12-1, the SEC champion, after that big win over Georgia, and Florida State is 5. Now, couple of thoughts. The first thought is, what didn't make sense to me is that if you're telling me that Florida State was just not good enough because of the Jordan Travis injury, which is basically what they wanted to tell us, then they're probably not better than Georgia. So why were they at 5 in the first place? Because the Georgia eye test will tell me, even though they lost against Alabama after 29 straight wins, that they would have been better than Florida State because of the Jordan Travis injury. So a little contradiction, but listen, that's a bit of a digression, if you will. Let's take a look at what the committee was actually deciding on, because I'm a firm believer, as you know, that the committee takes the path of least resistance, okay? Now, they can talk about a lot of different factors, but that's really the factor that they look at. And if you're saying no to one of those 3 teams, the undefeateds are in, now you're debating Texas, Alabama, and Florida State. You got the criteria up, which I'll get to in just a moment. But the first thing you've got to realize is, like, what am I saying no to? What's the downside here? Well, if you say no to Alabama, you're saying no to the SEC. You're saying no to Greg Sankey, the most powerful man in college football. You're saying no to Nick Saban and Alabama. It's not just the SEC, which has been dominant during the playoff era and in the BCS era, by the way, I might add. But it's also the SEC school. It's Alabama. It's Nick Saban, maybe the greatest, if you're asking me, the greatest coach in the history of the sport. The team that just ended Georgia's 29-game win streak. They're the SEC champion. That is a hard decision to make. Probably a bridge too far. Well, guess what? You can't say no to Texas because they beat the team I was just describing in Tuscaloosa by double digits. So that's a really hard no. And then you get to Florida State. And you get to Florida State, and yes, they're undefeated. And yes, they're deserving. And everyone believes that that's the case. But they've got their quarterback out. Jordan Travis, their most important player. Even as good as the defense has been, their most important player, Jordan Travis, is not available. Now we go to the criteria. And the criteria allows the committee to take that path of least resistance because this provides, hate to say it this way, but an excuse. Let me just read some of these points here. Obviously, conference championship, strength of schedule, which favors Alabama in a big way, comparative outcomes, common opponents, things like that. And then we get to the last point, and this is the one that you really have to pay attention to. The committee is sitting there, and they're saying no to Florida State. Why? Because they've got a criteria sitting in front of them that states other relevant factors, such as unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected a team's performance during the season, or, important here, likely will affect its postseason performance. So why did the committee say no to Florida State? Jordan Travis. I hate that. I feel bad for Jordan Travis. I feel bad for Florida State, but that's what the committee did. And the thing about it is they were going to be immediately validated, the committee, based on the betting lines that we got in the games that they created. The playoff games, tight matchups. That Michigan-Alabama, basically a coin flip. Texas-Washington, 4-point spread. Meanwhile, Georgia and FSU, they're going to face off in a bowl game, and immediately, what's the spread? 14. Bulldogs by 14. Validation in some respects. So did we get a better playoff this way? Yes, probably. Is the system also broken, and does this suck for the Florida State players? Yes, that's also the case, and I think both can be true. All right, we're going to step away for a quick break here. When we come back, more Breaking the Huddle straight ahead. All right, welcome back to the program. So we've got our new semifinals, and we've got our playoff matchups, and they're great matchups. Great matchups. Can't wait for these games. In a lot of ways, you know, this playoff, as much as it's disappointing for Florida State, man, this playoff, at least on paper, has the mark of what could be the best playoff that we've had in basically the decade since the playoff came into existence. I mean, these are phenomenal games. Let's start with what I think is going to be the best game, which is Alabama and Michigan. I mean, these two teams, man, you talk about, one, you're playing in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, which my favorite game by far. And then it's these programs with these coaches, the storylines of what's going on, obviously the development of Alabama after the early loss, Michigan undefeated again. You want to call it like overcoming the adversity that you could argue they created on themselves with the Connor Stallions stuff. It's going to be a remarkable matchup. And that's just all the stuff that is not on the field. And then you look on the field and you're like, man, these are great teams. I can't wait to see them. Now, each of these teams, by the way, are similar in some degree, in that, like, they're not built on passing games. Now, I think that Michigan can throw the ball pretty effectively, and J.J. McCarthy has proven the fact that he is a really legitimate threat as a passer, but neither of these teams, like, lean on the passing game. Now, both of them have good to decent scoring offenses, top 20 in the country. Scoring defenses, Bama, you know, not maybe what they've been in the past, and then here's the #1 scoring defense in the country for the Michigan Wolverines. The total offense, kind of the same, right? A methodical offense for Michigan, and maybe more of the same for Bama, built on running the football, in particular around their quarterback, Jalen Milroe. Defense has been good, and the turnover margin, Michigan really excels. Michigan's a really sound team and will be certainly the best all-around team that Alabama has played, even maybe more so than Georgia, because remember, Michigan has been a more consistent and dominant team during the course of the year than anybody else in college football. So this is going to come down to be a wonderful game. Where are some of the advantages? Well, number one, when I first saw this matchup, the thing that I was immediately drawn to is I want to see Michigan's defense handle Jalen Milroe, or can they handle him? Will they? Because they haven't seen anybody on their schedule like they're going to see from Jalen Milroe. His ability to run the football is going to be difficult on the Wolverines. And then conversely, I don't think Bama has seen anybody, maybe even Texas, that's going to line up on both the offensive and defensive line and just be formidable at the line of scrimmage. And we saw them struggle with that from Texas. I think Michigan's even better than Georgia at the line of scrimmage this season. And defensively, they can do a lot of different things, both stopping the run and getting to the quarterback. So those are the two areas that I immediately was drawn to in this game. That's going to be a phenomenal game. I can't wait to see that one. And then, by the way, the nightcap, here we go to the second playoff game. This one's going to be outstanding. And you talk about offensive skill on display, game plans, offensive play calling. This one is going to be, well, it has the ability to be a shootout, to be honest with you. And I think all of us would be in favor of that. Now, you know, you look at some of the numbers, but to me, this game is not about the numbers and where their defense and offense actually rank. It's more about the matchup. So Texas's pass defense is going to be threatened. They're, I believe, 95th, 96th, something right there, mid-90s, and they're going to be facing what I think is the best passing attack in the country. Michael Penix is outstanding. More on that next segment when we talk about the Heisman Trophy. Their wide receivers are outstanding, and that's one of the areas where Texas has been, let's just say, vulnerable, which is the pass defense. Now, they can rush the passer, and they do a great job up front with guys like T'Vondre Sweat. There's no doubt. And I'm interested to see how Washington will handle that, because they generally protect Michael Penix really well. And Texas is a team that can get after the quarterback. That's a great matchup. Then you go on the flip side. Okay, now Texas has the ball. Texas puts speed on the field. I mean, like, these guys can run. Jonathan Brooks goes down. They've got a deep core of running backs that go out there. Jaden Blue can take it to the house. C.J. Baxter, he's been fantastic, the freshman running back. They've got talent. Xavier Worthy, he's reached, in terms of GPS, he's the fastest player in college football on the field this year. And that's what that defense from Washington is going to have to deal with. The one area that I feel like is most interesting in this game is, will Washington be able to run the football like they were able to against Oregon? I don't know if they can, because this Texas defense is so stout up front. This is, again, going to be an amazing matchup. It's going to come down to Michael Penix, his ability to throw the football, his ability to score points against that secondary of Texas, which is their vulnerability. And then for Texas, it's the speed on the field. You know, can they create a game plan that gets that speed into positions where they can then go out there and create explosive plays? It's going to be a great matchup, folks. Again, this playoff is, at least on paper, I consider it the best playoff that we maybe have ever had in the playoff era. And I hope that these games live up to it, because they certainly could. Okay, so when we come back, let's talk about the Heisman Trophy, because these two players, and I know there's 4 guys that are finalists, but the 2 players that I really think that this is between, Michael Penix Jr. and Jayden Daniels from LSU. Let's take a look at them. What makes them tick? What makes them great? That's coming up right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about the Heisman Trophy. We got our finalists finally. We got 4 finalists, great players, obviously. You know how I feel about every one of them. Jayden Daniels, your betting favorite right now. Pretty clear, he had a great year. Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, Bo Nix, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. Down there. I think it's pretty safe to say, you know, Jayden is the overwhelming favorite to win this thing. There's a lot of people that you know, have already, you know, run away with this Heisman Trophy in terms of Jayden Daniels. I think it's a little bit of an argument between Michael Penix Jr. and Jayden Daniels. When you look at it, Penix now has led the country in passing 2 straight years. He's the quarterback of an undefeated #2 team that's in the playoff. He's been fantastic. Obviously, he's not the runner that Jayden Daniels is. But I wanted to just break both of these guys because they are both so good at what they do, but they're different players. So I wanted to show you kind of the strengths of both guys on the film as we, you know, get set for the Heisman Trophy unveiling here this weekend. So let me start with the video of Jayden Daniels, because Jayden does a lot of things well. Okay, so the first thing that he does is one, he recognizes what's going on pre-snap. See right here, he sees that the safety comes down, so he knows via the route concept, I'm gonna have the opportunity to take a shot deep, and as soon as those safeties stay low, boom, there's Neighbors, 48 yards down the field, and he takes that shot and he wins. Beautiful job by him, recognizing what's going on pre-snap, and then executing with a really good ball down the field. They do a lot of good stuff schematically, and right here, again, pre-snap, he sees that the safeties are deep, and because they're 2 deep safeties, he's gonna have the opportunity with quality timing to get this ball in front of the safety. So he's got this little concept right here, and look at that ball placement. He stays away from the defender, so he kind of stops his wide receiver right there, and then away from the defender, and then he's able to spin away and score. So he gets it, right? He understands what he's seeing out there, and then he understands the leverage. So can I go deep? Can I throw short? Do I need to stop my wide receiver? That sort of thing is next level. He's outstanding at that. And then, after all of that, you still got his ability to affect the defense with his legs. And this is where he really separates himself in terms of his dynamic ability. Good rush from Bama. And here he goes. He's outside. Look at this. Now, normally a quarterback would just run out of bounds, but he sees a different lane. He takes it, goes back toward the inside. Now, he takes a big hit, but those are extra yards that don't show up necessarily in the stat sheet. Those are important type of yards and cutbacks, and he's obviously got the dynamic ability. That last one was a scramble. This one, designed run. Watch LSU design this. They're going to release a lineman and a back up to the second level. Boom. They get the linebackers blocked, and now you see the speed. You know, Daniels is just a remarkable athlete. He's obviously great as a passer. And we see the examples of him really understanding the coverage, playing well from the pocket, manipulating the game from the pocket, and controlling the game from the pocket. And then you also see him and his ability to affect the game outside of the pocket. That's what's made him so dangerous and why he's the betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Now, I will say, Penix is different, but what he does well, he does exceptionally well. Let's take a look at the video of Michael Penix from Washington. I categorize him as a great passer of the football, not just thrower of the football, but passer. And the reason I say that is because every time he throws something, he's throwing it with the proper leverage away from the defender. So he always misses on the correct side. Here he's got a slot fade, and he doesn't bring his wide receiver toward the defender. He takes him away from the single defender in the middle of the field. Look at this ball as we spin around here, the camera angle. Where is it? Outside, high and outside. It allows his wide receiver to go make an adjustment away from the defense and away from the defense's help. Okay, so again, you've got to understand leverage, the type of ball to throw. You know, am I throwing it hard? Am I throwing it with touch? These are all things that he excels at. We move to the next clip. This is against Oregon, and watch this great little bunch release right here. So he's got one short route and a deep route, and he makes the decision quickly, right? So he's anticipating, he's got the deep route that he wants because he sees the parallel shoulders and the squatting of the corner. And look at this ball, touch away from the defender. So everything is thrown with the proper leverage. I love watching him pass the ball because it's so good. That one out in front with some touch. We move ahead in this game to really the most critical part of the game. Now we've got a late situation. It's fourth quarter, minute 38 left. They're down. They need a score. He's got his best player, Rome Odunze. He's up there. Now, he's going to throw this little fade, and look at this. This safety is on the near hash. That's not a big window, folks. Okay, and watch the ball. He throws it lower, so he flattens the trajectory and he goes to the back shoulder, away from the defender, away from the help of the safety, and it ends up being a touchdown. Like, I love watching this guy on tape. He's so good in these moments. So like I said, he's not just a great thrower of the football, he's a great passer of the football, and there's a difference. There's a difference. So what Jayden Daniels does is a little bit different than what Michael Penix does. I think that these guys are equally great. You know, obviously Daniels lost some of the more important games that he played this year, whereas Penix did not. They're undefeated. They're going to the college football playoffs. So the production of Jayden Daniels now against the team quality and the importance of what the stats have been for Michael Penix Jr. I think it's a great debate here as we move along this week and we try to crown ourselves a new Heisman Trophy winner. By the way, best individual award in all of American sports. There's not a doubt in my mind. When we come back, though, it's Klattback. Maybe not quite as prestigious as a Heisman Trophy, but you might be featured on Klattback. That's something. All right, let's get a little Klattback here today. Let's go out and check out what's online. I'm sure it's so positive, right? Especially this time of year. Everyone's so positive this time of year. Talking about playoffs, we're talking about rankings. Okay, Billy says, why are Penn State and Ole Miss above Oklahoma? Speaking of my top 10, who beat a CFP team and a New Year's Six team. You're right. Oklahoma, I think, has an argument to be in the top 10. There's no doubt about that. Oklahoma has had a fabulous year. Now, it just so happens that I covered Penn State a couple of different times, actually 3, and I covered Oklahoma in person, and I just thought Penn State was a better team. If the two play, I think Penn State would win. You know, so that's why I put them that way. Oklahoma was right behind Ole Miss. Ole Miss also is a type of team that I think Oklahoma would struggle with. Could I be wrong? Yeah, absolutely. And does OU maybe deserve a spot in the 10? Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. So my rankings are not perfect, but you know what? That's the way that I ranked them. So, you know, pound sand, Billy. I guess that's what I would say. But also have a great Christmas because it's almost the holiday season. All right, let's move on. All right, Ace Football Analytics says, do you honestly believe that Washington would come within 10 points of Georgia? One, this is like, why is this a debate? I'm sorry. This is not a debate. One, like Georgia lost, so like they're out, they're down, right? And guess what? Washington didn't. And do I believe they would come within 10? Yes. Why? Washington has 2 different wins. 2. that's better than any win that Georgia has. I don't care where Missouri is ranked. Oregon is far superior to Missouri. Okay, it's just the case. And Washington beat that team twice. So yeah, like why are we arguing? Like, are you serious? Data analytics, Ace Football Analytics, Ace Football Analytics. I'm sure you are. I bet. Way to go, buddy. Okay, here we go. Let's move on. One more. What do we got? Get Good Dad, always learn 24/7. This guy looks nice. Look at him, his blue check. He ran away from the Gatorade shower. Jim only cares about Jim. Speaking about Jim Harbaugh, I tweeted that, listen, I agree with Jim Harbaugh. He talked about the players. Maybe they should share in the revenue, in particular when you're talking about the new CFP television deal. I kind of agree with that, by the way. And everyone decided like, oh, you can't compliment Jim. Jim only cares about Jim. You're right, Get Good Dad, with the stock photo, because you've covered Michigan 8 times in the last 2 years and met with Jim for hours on end, talking with him. You've met with his coaches. You've met with 30 plus of his players and talked to them about Jim Harbaugh and the way that he treats them, because you've met his family, right? Right? Get Good Dad, right? Stock photo guy. Yeah, you know Jim much better than I do. I've only covered him 8 times in the last couple of years, 4 times in the last 4 weeks, and talked with all of his players. But you know what? What do I know, right? You know what I mean? Hey, good stock photo guy. Unbelievable. That's going to do it for Breaking the Huddle today. I always wish that we ended on more of a positive note. Stock photo guy got me a little bit, but that's okay. You know why? Because it's a great week. We've got Heisman Trophy. We've got Army-Navy. We've got the bowl game season. Holiday Bowl coming up on December 27th. That's going to be great. So you know what? Have a great week. I'm going to have a great week. This show, as always, is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the one fans deserve. We'll see you next time, everybody.